How are we doing? So, to continue the story, in the U.S., the price of gasoline was 15 cents a gallon. Okay. And again, as I said before, we became very dependent upon oil because oil and gasoline prices were so low. So, what happened was, the OPEC nations, the oil-producing economies in the Middle East, they got together and they kind of gave the U.S. the boot and they said, we're now going to determine oil production in the Middle East. And what they did was significantly reduce the production of oil in the U.S. in the Middle East, and the supply curve for oil and gasoline in the U.S. shifted upward and inward. Okay? So, if the U.S. would have allowed oil prices to go up and gasoline prices to go up, we would have been spending 50 cents a gallon. But what the U.S. did is that they thought it was incredibly important to keep gasoline prices very low. So they created a federal law saying that gasoline prices had to be at 15 cents a gallon. Okay? So essentially they did not let the free market determine the price of gasoline. So what happened was the supply curve shifted inward. And now gasoline production, since the price is 15 cents a gallon, is only 0Q1. Before it was 0Q0, now it became 0Q1. So what we see is, at 15 cents a gallon, this is the amount of supply, 0Q1, but the amount of demand is 0Q0. So, to give you an example of what this meant, is that in the summer of 1973, after I got done with my first year skiing in Park City, I went home to visit my parents. And that summer, my dad said, Harv, why don't you go fill up the car with gas? And I said, sure, no problem. So, I got in the car, and I went to the local gas station, and there was a line of about 15 cars outside the gas station. And I said, what is going on here? So, I got in line, and it took me 2 hours to go through the line to finally get the car filled up. And then I drove back home and said, Dad, what is going on? There was a long line to get gasoline. He said, Harv, there's a shortage. There's a shortage of gasoline, and that's the problem. Well, my dad was wrong about that. What there was an excess demand because the U.S. government did not allow the prices of gasoline to go up to 50 cents a gallon. They kept it at 15 cents. So, with the cost of buying the oil so expensive, gasoline companies were only willing to supply this amount of gasoline, 0Q1, at this low price of 15 cents a gallon. But at 15 cents a gallon, the demand was so large. So that was reflected in me waiting 2 hours online at the gasoline station to purchase the gasoline. So people were clamoring that this is ridiculous that we have a shortage of gasoline. So, a couple of months later, the U.S. government realized that they cannot artificially keep the price of gasoline so low as 50 cents a gallon because we had these huge lines. In fact, it got so bad that the gasoline station where my father would buy gas, they advertised that if you want to get your car tuned up, leave the car with us, it'll be $25 for the tune-up, plus we'll fill up your tank with gasoline. So my father 3 times in the space of a month and a half got tune-ups for his car because he didn't want to wait in line for 2 hours. So he dropped his car off in the morning, get a ride to work, and during the day, the gasoline, gas station, we gave him a tune-up for 25 bucks, plus filled up his car with gasoline. Of course, my dad had to pay for that gas. So, people were trying to find ways around waiting online 2 hours to get gasoline. So my dad got these three tune-ups in the space of a month and a half. So eventually the federal government said, okay, we cannot keep prices artificially low at 15 cents a gallon. What they did was they deregulated the gasoline market, and literally overnight, gasoline prices went from 15 cents a gallon to 50 cents a gallon. That was a price increase of almost 300%. So, in today's world, I realize things are getting weird with gasoline prices, but let's say gas prices are $2 a gallon, and overnight they go up to $6 a gallon. The disruption in the economy would be dramatic. And just think of how that would impact your life if gasoline prices tripled. Now, I realize in today's world, many of us are driving, but you can imagine that in a more normal time. So, The next graph, which will be the final graph, is going to be the labor market and the output market to describe what the impact was of this dramatic increase in the price of oil. See you in a little bit.